from your perspective, did that change at all?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it did change later in the years. I would say not till I got into college was there a difference.
Do you know what caused that change?
Yes. Basically, my mother began having an affair with Ted Wiley, and when my dad found out about it, that's pretty much when things went south.
Okay, let's talk about Ted Wiley for a little bit. Around what time did you become aware of that relationship?
Probably 2009, maybe? 2008, 2009. I specifically remember when I found out about it. I just can't remember exactly the year, but I think it was
Sure. How did you find out about it?
My dad called me. He called me. I was working, and he called me when I was working, and I took a break to talk to him. And he told me that my mom had moved in with Ted, and that they were in a relationship. And that was pretty devastating.
Who was Ted Wiley? How did you know him?
So Ted, sorry.
That's okay, take your time.
Ted dated my Aunt Sherry, who's my dad's sister. They've been together for a very long time. I mean, like, I remember Christmas gatherings when Ted was around when I was like 7. I mean, he's been around for a very long time. But Ted was dating my Aunt Sherry. Yes.
And you had mentioned that your mom moved in with Ted, and that's the information that you had at the time.
Yes.
How long did she stay gone?
It was quite a while. It was, I mean, certainly longer than a month. I want to say it could have been like 3 months. We couldn't really get a hold of her during that time. And, you know, it was so long ago, it's a little bit of a blur, but it was a good chunk of time for sure.
At any point during the Ted Wiley affair, was there a financial situation that you became aware of between your parents?
I mean, yeah, my dad had called me and said that, like, right before she kind of, for lack of a better word, disappeared, she had withdrawn a significant amount of money from their home equity line of credit tied to the house.
And how was your dad when he told you about that?
I mean, he was upset. You know, I kind of can understand where he was coming from. If my spouse did that, I would be upset. I think anyone would, without communicating. But you know, I think that was very troubling for him, because she had never done anything like that before.
Did you say she had never done?
She had never done anything like that before.
At some point over the next year or so, did your parents rekindle, for lack of a better word?
I think there was an attempt made. I moved back to the Atlanta area, and I feel like that's kind of when she came back home, was when I moved back to Atlanta. And I don't know how much effort was put into rekindling the relationship, but she came back home.
Okay. What year was that? You mentioned it was when you moved
2011.
back. 2011.
Yeah. Because that was, after I graduated, so 2011.
So you moved back to the Atlanta area after you graduated?
Yes, from college, yeah.
Did you move back to the Alpharetta house or somewhere else?
No, I was in an apartment in Dunwoody
Okay.
when I moved back.
So At that time, did that affair change your parents' relationship in your eyes?
Yes, absolutely.
How so?
Completely changed everything. I just think that he lost trust that was once there, and it was just like we all knew it happened, but there was no explanation from her end on why it happened, or that there was no apology. So it was really hard as a family for us to move on, because it was almost like, we're just not going to talk about that now. But I definitely felt like it was still going on. If, for example, if I were to go out to lunch, I would see her texting him. So it's things like that. But yes, it was a very bad toll that was taken on our family. Hard to recover from that.
Did your parents' financial relationship change?
Yes, it did.
How so?
So my dad removed her from bank accounts, or he, I guess, closed joint, open new. So she no longer was on the bank accounts. So she couldn't, she didn't have access the way that she did before.
I want to move forward a little bit to, let me ask you this. When did you move to Tennessee?
2015 is when I moved to Tennessee.
So your parents had the farm when you moved to Tennessee?
They did, yes.
Were you around when they were making the decision to purchase the farm?
I was.
What was your understanding of why they moved out of Alpharetta into a farm?
Well, I think it was probably a good try to start over. When my mom was in Florence spending time with Ted, he had horses, and they would go horseback riding. It was a pretty big deal. And my mom seemed to really enjoy that. So I think buying kind of a horse farm was kind of my dad's way of trying to make her happy. I know that's a little strange, but I just think it was a chance to start fresh. I think from his perspective it was that, but I don't know why together as a couple they decided to move, but I think it was a chance to start over, for sure.
So then you moved to Tennessee after they moved into the farm?
Mm-hmm.
Did you, would your mom visit you in Tennessee?
She would.
And at some point, did you get married in Tennessee?
I did. Yes, I did.
Before that, did your mom kind of rekindle a relationship with her cousin Martha Jane?
She sure did, yes.
Tell the jury about that a little bit.
So, I can't really remember what year it was that Martha Jane had surgery. I'm sorry, I do not know what kind of surgery she had. But my mom kind of volunteered herself to go up there and help her with that. That, from that point, is when the relationship with Martha Jane came about and became stronger.
Where did Martha Jane live?
Tullahoma, Tennessee.
And did you ever go with your mom to Tullahoma?
The only time I ever went to Tullahoma was, I think it was once. We were going to go visit my grandmother, my mom's mom. I think it was for Mother's Day. It was going to be a Mother's Day kind of visit. And so I drove from Franklin, Tennessee to Tullahoma, Tennessee to ride together with my mom and Martha Jane to Florence, Alabama to visit my grandmother. And I believe that was the only time that I ever visited there.
Okay. So you fast forward a little bit, end up getting married in Tennessee.
Yeah.
tell the jury a little bit about what happened at your wedding.
I mean, it was a good wedding. I was the bride, so I was a little, I was like probably in another world compared to everyone else. But our family was there, obviously, and I mean, everything was pretty normal with the wedding, but I don't know. I guess Rusty Barton came to the wedding. I knew he was invited. My mom included him on her guest list. He was there, and at that point, we were kind of aware that maybe something more was going on with him between her, my mom and Rusty, and he came to the wedding, and from what I understand, they were like dancing together, like canoodling, if you will, during the reception.
You mentioned that you all sort of knew prior that something may have been going on. Mm-hmm. How did you know that?
Well, she would like talk, like, so before I even moved to Tennessee, if like I was like out with her, like if we were like running errands or going shopping or something like that, like she would talk about Rusty. Like she would just like bring him up, and you know, she would say something about like, oh, he's such a great grandfather to his grandkids, or blah blah blah, and I was just like, okay, like that's nice. But I don't know, when I told my mom that I was moving to Tennessee, I expected her to be upset, and she wasn't. She was almost giddy, and that to me was like another sign to me that it's like a reason for her to go to Tennessee, is because I'm up there now. And then there was one night after we had moved to Tennessee, my sister was in town. She was working for Tory Burch at the time, and she had to help out at the Green Hills location. And so she was staying with me, and we had planned a dinner with my mom, and I believe I knew Martha Jane was going to go, and they were going to drive up from Tullahoma to Franklin, and we were going to go to dinner. And when my mom arrived at our apartment, Rusty was with her, and we did not know that Rusty was going to be with her, so that was very uncomfortable. I can remember how upset my sister was about the situation. It was very odd to see him there. And then when we went to dinner, they sat next to each other, and just the interactions between the two were of a couple. Like there was, like I felt like under the table leg touching, like getting really close together to talk, just like whispering to each other, like into each other's ears. Like it was so uncomfortable that after they left, after the dinner, my sister was like, we need to tell Daddy. Like, we need to tell Daddy that he was here tonight. And we had a conversation on whether we should tell our dad or not. It was that uncomfortable. But that's kind of when I knew that, why would she be spending time with this guy? We were already kind of suspicious after Ted, so it was strange for us to see her spending time with another man, for sure.
The conversation that you and your sister had, was that with Amanda?
It was.
Did you end up telling your dad?
No, we didn't, and I actually was the one that told her. I just think all it's going to do, we don't know anything. Like, we don't know. And I just felt like all that's going to do is upset him. And so I just, and she was like ready to tell him. She totally was. And I was just like, I just don't think that we should right now, because it's only going to make him upset. And we don't know. We don't know we haven't seen anything. Like, we haven't like caught anything, So I told her no.
So I want to fast forward to the wedding. Is that how you all kind of knew something was maybe going on between your mom and Rusty?
Yes, for sure.
And then your mom invited him to your wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a conversation about that with anyone?
So basically, I asked for guest lists from both of my parents, and they separately provided me guest lists. I saw that Rusty was on the guest list, and I called my brother and his wife at the time, Jenna, and I said, what should I do? He's on the guest list. She wants me to mail him an invitation, and if I press her on this, she will cancel my wedding. Like, she will cancel my wedding. It'll be over. Like, I felt like my hands were tied. Because that's how she was. They said, why don't you just send her guest list to Daddy, just so he can see it? And so that's what I did. I emailed it to him, and I think in the email I said, here's her guest list. I just wanted you to see who all she's inviting. And he never actually responded to my email.
Can I approach the witness, Your Honor? Okay. And I'm going to show you State's Exhibit Pane 1 through 10. Defense already had those exhibits, but this time I'd like to move to tender State's Exhibits Pane 1 through 10.
Definitely. All right, they're admitted.
Emily, I'm just going to walk through those with you on the screen, okay? The first few are, well, I guess these are pictures you provided the state from your wedding?
Yes.
Okay. This is a family photo?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's your mom in the kind of silverish dress?
It's like a blush pink, but yeah.
It was a blush pink. And then who's this next to you?
That's my sister Amanda.
Okay, and Scott, and your dad,
Great.
Chris, and Jenna?
Yes.
Okay. That's you and your dad. Okay, so what are we looking at? Who are we looking at here?
So obviously that's me, that's my husband Chris, and that's two of my husband's friends. Jason, I can't remember his name.
Sure.
And oh gosh, her name is blanking on me too. But they're Chris's, like colleagues of Chris's. So
And your husband's name is Chris too.
Yes.
Okay, so you're talking about your husband Chris.
My husband Chris. I'm sorry, my Chris.
No, that's okay. We
Sorry.
should have explained that to the jury. And you sent us this photo. Who is this back here in the background?
That's Rusty Barton.
Okay, and who's that right there?
That's my mom.
What year did you get married?
2016.
And this is you and your husband dancing?
It is, yes.
And right here in the background, who are these two folks right here?
That's Rusty and my mother.
And some more pictures of you and Chris dancing. And is it the same, your mom and Rusty back here?
It is.
When you got these photos back, did you notice?
Oh, yes. I noticed that. Mm-hmm.
And is this the same, your mom and Rusty right here?
It is, yes.
And then I want to draw your attention to, well, who's this right here?
That is Chad, Bruce, and Ella, my niece Ella.
Okay. And this is you and Chris?
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
That's right.
And then over here, we have what looks like Mr. Barton.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And do you know who this is in the black or the dark color dress? Maybe blue, I don't know.
Yes, that was, her name was Sherry. She was a friend of my mother's, also a neighbor.
And then is that your mom in between the two? You can see her dress in between.
Yes, that's her.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And who are we looking at here?
So, starting from the left, that's Chad Bruce there.
Okay.
In the sunglasses, that's Rusty Barton. That's my bridesmaid, Natalie Keene. And then that's Sherry, my mom's friend and neighbor.
Okay. And then who do we have here?
It's my mom and Rusty.
And then who's that back there?
That's my dad.
Who are we looking at here?
So that's Rusty in the red tie there. My dad is to his left.
Right here?
And then, I don't know who that is. Right there, that lady.
Okay.
I don't know if that's Sherry or not.
And so those were photos that were taken at your wedding.
Yes.
After the wedding, did anyone discuss Mr. Barton's presence? I mean, amongst your family, were there conversations? What was the fallout?
Yeah, not with me. My siblings actually did a fabulous job not making me aware of the situation while it was going on during the reception. I, was talking to everyone in the room. So I honestly, during the reception, did not notice
You
that
weren't paying
much.
attention to that.
Yes. And so even like that after the wedding was over, I didn't think about it. I didn't think about it at all. Even like my mom came up with Sherry to bring something to me after we had left, and I went down to the lobby and met her and Sherry, and I didn't think anything of it then, but I think it was in the days after the wedding. It was, I think, my brother Chris that brought up the anger that everyone was feeling during the reception. There was a lot of my siblings staring down the situation. I know my sister told me that she was almost having to be held back. She was so angry at her behavior with Rusty on the dance floor. She almost wanted to, it was a reception, we were all drinking. But, she was, very angry, and Chad almost had to, hold her back. And there's just, they were telling me things, and I, would think back on the reception and, remember glimpses of interactions. I didn't know what was going on, but, I remember my sister, almost looking like she wanted to, do something, and, Chad kind of, calming her down. But, my brother did tell me that, later, I can't remember how long it was after the wedding, but we were, I think, all just at that point discussing it, can you believe that? Oh my gosh, that was so crazy. And then, my brother Chris was well, we had gone to eat before we left town, and Daddy said, that's the last time she's ever going to embarrass me like that again. I can only imagine how devastated he was by that.